So I haven't made as much progress as I'd like to on this kit. Frankly, I've been working on the layout quite a bit over the last month or so, and I've just now turned my attention back to the Streeters and Clearbrook kit. As a reminder, this is the photo of Bob Van Gelder's pilot model. This is the feed mill portion of the kit, and there's a store that also goes along with this. I've been focusing on the feed mill first because I have a specific place for the layout that I want to put it. Before I got started doing the walls, I actually made a couple of test samples, and these are just pieces of scrap clapboard that I weathered and textured in various ways just to see what ones I thought looked the best or what approach looked the best. This first one is essentially the way the kit describes to do it. And on the right-hand side of each of these three, you can see there's sort of a rough area where supposedly looking for the effect of peeling paint. This is using the rubber cement technique that's in the kit instructions. And with that, you basically take some regular rubber cement like this and you dab it in various places on the siding after you've stained it the base color. Be it an alcohol and Indian ink stain. I actually used a Hunter line color called Greige, which is essentially a brownish gray color. And then over that I put the rubber cement just on the right hand side of each of these. And then I did the other texturing and finishing. I painted their dry brushed white paint on there. I added some Vallejo stain to it, which is a modeling stain. This is what that looks like. It's a wash, light gray Vallejo wash that I added to that. And then I dry brushed another coat of white over a couple of these. You can see this one here. And then the idea with the rubber cement, according to the kit instructions, is you're supposed to then rub the rubber cement off, and it's going to expose the gray surface under the paint surface and make it look like peeling paint. Frankly, I had very little luck with that. It produced kind of a very, very heavy texture, very rough look, and you can see it here. Maybe I didn't scrub it off right, or maybe I put too much rubber cement on, but I really didn't like the look of that. Lifting the corners of the clapboard, which is a technique that I think most people that build these kits are familiar with, that worked well. For that, you just use a single edge razor blade like this, or this is how I do it. And I kind of slice under the clapboard and then prop it up with the corner, just kind of pry it over with the corner. And in some cases, it actually just removes a big chunk of the wood. I don't mind that for a really heavily weathered siding like I'm going for on the feed mill. The store is going to have slightly less weathered siding. In the end, the approach I thought looked the best was the one here, which consists of, again, the grease stain on the clapboard, on the raw clapboard. And then over that, I added the wash, specifically really focusing kind of on the lower pieces of the boards. I did some lifting of the clapboards here, made sure I put the vertical lines in to note the boards, the separation between the boards, in some cases, not on every board, but at various places. And then I dry brushed a coat of white, being very selective about which clapboard I dry brushed over. I didn't do the whole wall at once. So this is what I ultimately ended up with. I will go ahead and get the feed mill walls down and let you see what those look like. Okay, we're back. One thing I did do is when I was getting the walls for the kit out, I noticed I had my tabletop tripod nearby, so I went ahead and used that here, so hopefully the picture will be a little clearer. But this is what the walls for the feed mill look like. You can see here I've added several of the signs. These are not installed yet. These are just laying on top of the walls. I did weather and paint the walls like I showed you on that scrap sample. You can see here, you can tell how I tried to get close to that effect. One thing I did do that I didn't mention on the samples is I added some impressions of nail holes in various spots on this. The way I did that was, rather than line it up with a scale ruler and use a Ponce wheel, I used a little device I'd picked up years ago at a train show, which is this thing called a Munster nailer. And if you see, I'm going to try to hold it up really close there. Unfortunately, I don't think these are made anymore. But it is 2 pins in the end of basically a pencil, 2 very small pins, and the idea is you take those and you go up and down the board. You run it up and down the clapboards, and you hold a ruler against it or a square and line it up. In order to line those up, I don't necessarily love nail holes on everything. There's people that love them, there's people that hate them. I'm fairly ambivalent about them. I thought on this model they might look good because I'm going for a very heavily weathered building. Rather than try to measure it out and hold the square against it, I simply took these 2 pieces of blue masking tape that you see down here, and they have lines on them that are marked at HO scale 2-foot increments. So by lining up the wall in one spot, I have enough of the line visible on the top and the bottom. I can just lay the ruler across that and run the nail hole device up and down the wall that way. It is tedious to do it with this particular device, this tool. It takes a little bit longer than maybe just running a Ponce wheel up and down on the wall, but you do get the effect of 2 holes in each board, which is kind of interesting. What you see here is the poster of Bob Van Gelder's pilot model of the store, the actual corner store, the Streeter store. This is based on a prototype pretty extensively. I mean, it's pretty specific to that prototype. The next step in the project for me is to go ahead and get these walls painted, weathered, and prepared. And this is the walls so far. Obviously, these are just fresh out of the box. I haven't done anything with these particular walls yet, but they'll get weathered. The clapboards will get raised. There'll be some nail holes put on them. It will not be as weathered as the feed mill. Of course, the first step is to brace them, and I should point this out that one of the things included in these South River kits is a wall diagram with the bracing locations, even down to making sure that you inset them from the corners properly, that if there's going to be some interference, it's a shorter piece. Having built several of these kits before, I would seriously recommend paying attention to these bracing diagrams and using them. Just a quick note on glazing windows, or putting the glass, if you will, in the windows themselves. One of the neatest tools you have in your toolbox, or should have in your toolbox, is one of these, and this is just basically a caliper. You notice here it's not even turned on. I'm not really going to measure anything to get the measurement of something. I don't need the dimensions, but I use this to determine how big to cut this acetate or the styrene, the clear styrene, to make the window glazing. To do that, what you do is you take your window casting and you just take the back of your calipers and you run it to the inside edge, and then you lock them down, and now you have a dimension that you can transfer directly to the styrene and make a mark in a couple of spots. You can run down the edge of the styrene, and I'm doing this on the board because you wouldn't be able to see the clear styrene. But say this was the edge of the styrene, you would run down here, maybe here, and make a couple of marks, and that's something else that this particular tool is handy for, something like a needle. You just can mark it here, and now you have a line, a couple of spots to put your straight edge against, and then draw your light knife along it and cut it to width. Obviously for length, or for the height of the window, you would do the same thing. So that's it for this update. I'm gonna go ahead and work on trying to get the feed mill walls to fit the foundation and make sure that's all lined up correctly, and maybe get the basic walls put together before the next update here. I apologize if I sound like I've been a little bit out of breath on this particular video. I'm getting over a pretty bad head cold. Luckily, I have not tested positive for COVID, but please take it seriously, stay safe. Thanks so much for watching.